Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Welcome back to Legal Lounge. In today's episode, I have a friend of mine and professional in my industry, Tara. She is a certified therapist, but you have actually a lot of letters after your name, so I'll hand it off to you to tell the listener more.
Okay, yes. My name is Tara Egan, and I am a licensed clinical mental health clinician. I have a doctorate in school psychology. I'm licensed in North and South Carolina, and I'm also a parent coordinator.
Look at that. So there's a lot of things that are going on in your office.
Right. I have a team of folks who works with me. So I have a group practice called Egan Counseling in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so we have right now, we're a team of 4 therapists, and we do a lot of work surrounding supporting families through separation and divorce. So all of us have specialized training in that. And we do work with kids and families with just kind of general mainstream adjustment issues, anxiety, depression, changes in schooling or stress points. But our niche really is in working with families experiencing separation and divorce.
And so naturally, unfortunately, you have some overlap with family law attorneys in the legal system.
We do a ton of coordinating together, which I like. It makes everyone's life easier. I feel like we can support you in like giving you the space to do the legal work that you need to do and these families need you to do. But then we can provide the parenting support, mental health care. Obviously we support the children too as they adjust through or they adjust to the family changes.
Yeah. And that's huge, right? Because I feel like sometimes I'll get a consultation, like a prospective client coming in, and they will unload a lot off of their chest, which I appreciate, shows a level of trust. But I have to remind them that I am not the mental health professional. I'm an attorney, and I can help guide them through the legal tools. And so sometimes I direct them toward a professional such as yourself to really address the mental and emotional piece of separation and divorce, because simply put, attorneys are not trained in that arena.
Well, there's so much grief, that families are going through during that stage. So, and I think of it as separation, it kind of happens in these segments where there's those first, it could be the weeks or months leading up to separation where maybe one of the parents is initiating, and maybe the other parent even feels blindsided, or maybe there's a discovery of some sort of betrayal. Or maybe it is planned and it's done pretty mindfully, and then there's the weeks and months immediately following when parents have established separate houses and the things have been communicated to the kids, to extended family members. They're trying to sort out what do finances look like. And even though we're certainly not going to be giving them legal advice, we recognize how very disruptive things are to the routine, to the finances, to just home life in general. So the parents are going through a certain degree of grief as well as the children. And then, of course, the parents are additionally grieving the fact that their kids are struggling. And then not to mention just the politics that goes with the opinions from neighbors and friends and extended family.
Yeah, the Google lawyers. We have a lot of those.
Yeah. And if depending on what their experience has been, like with maybe their own parents, or maybe they have a family member or a best friend who's gone through a divorce, and there's a lot of comparison as far as when my best friend got divorced. Her ex, was much more supportive of her financially, and I'm entitled to this or that too. And like, they can get really bogged down in like what should be or what their ideal picture is versus what is actually happening, or they have a thought about like they predicted their kids would act in a certain way. Like, I thought my kids were going to be outraged that their dad had an affair, but they still want to spend time with him. And then,
Yeah.
like I'm helping to support them through all those emotions so that they don't do something impulsive or conduct themselves in a way as a parent that they don't feel proud of later.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's interesting because there are these different dynamics of the mental and emotional reactions that we see in our clients. And it's interesting for me because I try to be very understanding and empathetic, but I don't have your training. And so when clients come to me and they say, well, my children will be mad, I have to sit here and be like, oh, I hope they aren't, or they may be for a time period. And that's where we can bring in a professional. But then sometimes my clients are like, well, I don't believe in therapy, or I don't want to go down that route, or that sounds like a long road, which it can be, because I know you've been appointed by the courts in some cases.
Absolutely.
And that your work with the family or the child and the parents does not happen overnight.
Right. And like I said, with those stages,
Yeah.
so you might have a kid initially has one response and then it changes over time, and really like the age they are, or, if we have a sibling who has a certain reaction that can impact the other siblings, it can be complicated, and parents are really busy people. So they have to figure out how to schedule this and how to pay for it. And, just sitting in Charlotte traffic, like it can just be something that feels more overwhelming. Of course, we have things like telehealth. In our team, considering that we work with children, we make as much, adjustments as we can to account for parents' working schedules, whereas kids, as well as kids' school schedules and things. But still, it ends up being an added thing that these already stressed parents are trying to manage.
Yeah. And I try to tell my clients, I get it, it's another added stressor, but we don't want the children to get lost in the fold, because regardless of an agreement or a custody order, if something gets put in place, but we haven't done the hard work on the mental and emotional front, we're just going to be back in court in a couple of years because we're still angry and we haven't worked through any grief or trauma or frustration that possibly led us to the separation to begin with.
Yeah. I think one of the most satisfying types of therapy I do is co-parenting therapy. And so there's some times where absolutely it's court ordered, like this has been a co-parenting team that has had conflict for years, and either a judge or a parent coordinator or maybe even the attorneys have convinced these parents to go and seek help from somebody like me and really manage their communication, making sure it's productive. How do we make day-to-day decisions about these kids? Maybe their kid has a specialized like learning need or health need that we need to account for. And to have the parents work together with a facilitator like me in session where we can stay focused, where we can really try to avoid going into the past and bringing up like, old places of hurt or resentment, and really be focused on what the kids need. And then because I am a therapist and I'm well-versed in like where are kids at developmentally, what are common stress points of kids this age? What are other resources in the community, whether it's through the schools or, medicine or other, therapists, whatever it is, what can we do to keep these children developing and growing and in a way they deserve.
Yeah.
And if they need to, say hateful things to each other or whatever in session with me, to a certain degree, fine. I mean, we keep it reined in, so that it's appropriate. But a lot of what I'm explaining to them is like, your co-parent doesn't need to respond to you in the same emotional way that they did when you two were partners.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to meet your need the same way. And so sometimes we have to suspend their beliefs around or sense of entitlement of, she knows how important it is to me that our kid try out soccer. I was a soccer player, when I was in college, and she knows how meaningful it was when I did it with my dad, and she won't, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, she doesn't have to account for you in the same way.
Yeah.
And so like,
Yeah.
let's rein that back and let's adjust our expectation. Let's look back at the order and see what it actually says.
Yeah.
And see where the obligation is. You always have an obligation to be a decent person.
Yeah.
But he or she doesn't have the obligation to account for your emotions or manage them in the same way that they may have when you were partners.
It's so interesting you say that, because I've gotten the question actually quite often from different clients where one party expects the other party to still live up to certain marital assumptions that I guess shouldn't apply because they're divorced. A great example was that I had a case. I represented the wife-husband situation, and husband, I think he had a death in the family. So he called on her to take care of the house, to pay the bills, to, make sure the trash was taken out on trash day, and to basically take care of the house while he went to the funeral. And I think at one point, he was driving to the funeral, his car broke down, and then also called her to come pick him up. And she's like, do I have to do any of this? And I was like, no, you're divorced. So let's start
you don't
there.
Live there. Yeah.
And yes, they have a child in common. So, to the extent the child is involved, like for example, if his car broke down and he wants you to pick up the kid, maybe yes, you go do that. But no, you don't have to find him a replacement car. You don't have to take care of the house. You don't have to pay any. No,
Right.
It's called boundaries.
Yeah.
So it was just very interesting to see that dynamic. And that's just one example of a few different cases I've seen that in.
I thought you were going to say, well, when daughter was 5, we talked about how someday we wanted her to go to this particular college. And now, she's 17 and she doesn't really want to go to that college, and he's not supporting what I want, or she's not supporting what I want. Like, because, back then we agreed. And I'm like, oh, you guys have changed. Like one of the
Yes.
common statements I hear from a co-parent is, well, I was married to him or her for however long, 8 years, 10 years, 27 years, and I know them. And I'm like, well, how long have you been apart? And it's like, well, seven years or something. And I'm like, they have lived so much. They have new people in their lives. They are practically a decade older. Like, maybe their parents have passed. Maybe they're in a completely different financial situation. And I hear that and I'm like, I think that that's a misstep, is to think just because you knew them then that you'd still know them now. I know I'm not the same person I was when I got divorced.
2 years ago. I feel like
100%. Yeah. And so I think that can keep people really stuck.
And to that exact point, having the same expectations out of people as everyone is changing too. If I've been hurt, I expect that person who hurt me to likely do it again. It's kind of, especially like domestic violence situations.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Right?
People
It is
feel that way.
understandable. But on the flip side, it's also, if you've broken the cycle or if you've changed the circumstance, and go one step further, hopefully the other person took steps to actively change. Like they've gone to therapy, or they've taken up a new hobby or sport to deal with their frustrations or anger. And there is the reality that I hear everything that my clients are telling me. I hear you when you say XYZ happened in the past, but now we have to look forward and what's going to happen forward. That doesn't mean we don't maybe put protections in the child custody order should said person exhibit any forms of abuse. On the flip side, let's hope for the best. Let's hope that it does not happen. Let's hope all the progress that has been made up to this point sticks in a way. And then if it doesn't, obviously the courtroom will still be there.
Well, and sometimes we just have to be in a place of acceptance of that. This person, they let you down. They might not change. That's not your responsibility to help them along with change beyond caring for your child. They might never feel sorry or have remorse or take steps to make amends with you personally. It doesn't mean they haven't paid a price that they take into another relationship in a healthier way, hopefully. But some of that is like if you are spending your time looking for this other person to be responsive to you, like they didn't do it and you're married. They're not going to do it now.
No.
And you're just staying in a place of emotional limbo that's harming yourself.
Yeah.
Building relationships is a natural part of life. But how does the law affect those relationships? Do you want to marry your significant other, but have cold feet from the many divorce horror stories out there? Are you preparing for a custody battle against your ex? That is where Modern Legal comes in. We offer education and knowledge about the law when it affects the relationships near and dear to your heart. To learn more about how family law affects your family, book a consultation with an attorney of our Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal Services at modernlegalnc.com.
It's interesting because I this is a while ago now, but there was a snippet on social media and I found it very interesting. And it was a situation where two spouses were separating and one spouse couldn't get off the position of wanting an acknowledgement for all of the years of suffering that they had gone through with this now ex-partner, ex-spouse. And the interviewer basically asked her, it was a her, does your ex need to validate your feelings? Or can you look in the mirror and acknowledge that these were real feelings of mine, right? Does your ex have to give you permission to feel those feelings? Does your ex have to say that, oh, those feelings are real and they're from my actions? Because does that change the pain? Does that change the hurt? Are you instead trying to get something that just may never come to materialization? And therefore, in a way, you're staying in the suffering versus recognizing reality.
Absolutely. I think that when people get through their separation or divorce far enough to get to that place where they're not waiting for that other person to validate their experience. And sometimes it can be also like their in-laws, sometimes even their own children, versus saying, okay, like you said, I know it's real. I know what I need to do to move forward in my life, with my life in a productive way or not repeat this cycle. But when people can do that, you just see how their world opens up. That's when they're getting to that other side and starting like a new normal that's healthy and empowering, and their kids can see that. And, I love that when I get to witness that in clients.
Oh, I was wondering, I'm sure that's your like, aha, this is why I do what I do moment.
Absolutely. Because even if you're not leaving a relationship with somebody who meets the criteria of an abuser, typically there's been a lot of negativity towards the end of that relationship. Maybe mean things have been said. Maybe someone's insecurities have been preyed on. Maybe there's been fear about finances or housing or access to the kids or whatever, even if it doesn't, kind of meet the marker or standard of like consistent chronic abuse. But when people can recognize like that was what it was, they played a role in it too. They were part of that relationship dynamic, but it can be different now.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Like when you see that light bulb go on.
Yeah, that's huge. And so you work with parents, but you also work with children.
It depends on the case.
Okay.
So you always, as a therapist, you have to be really clear on what your role is. So with some cases or some families, I'm the child's therapist. Other times I'm the co-parenting therapist. So both parents are the identified clients. Other times I'm doing what's called reunification therapy, which is a form of family therapy. And in that situation, the family unit is my client. That the family is my client, but then I'm supporting the relationships within that. Sometimes I will work individually with an adult, not always just moms. But when I think of like my caseload, even this week, like there'll be, mothers who are seeking support through the divorce process. And so we might not be necessarily focusing a lot on like childhood issues or a trauma that happened in college, but really like how are you grieving in this process? How are you showing up as a parent? How are you providing support for yourself? How are you managing all the legal stress? That's definitely something, given my specialty area that I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm the parent coordinator. And if I'm the parent coordinator, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm an arm of the court, and I'm helping this co-parenting team follow the order. And even though my therapy skills are utilized, I'm not the therapist.
Yeah. That was a wonderful list. I think we need to create a graphic with color because it's so true. There are so many different positions you can be in, and they all serve a different role. And go one step further, you could be the reunification therapist with the family unit as your quote unquote client, and there could be a separate therapist, say for the child. Or a
so
separate
with our
therapist for a parent.
team, we oftentimes are surrounding families with support. So let's just say I'm the co-parenting therapist and there's 2 kids. Matthew might be seeing the one kid and Lacey might be seeing another. Or I'm the co-parenting therapist and Matthew, who has specialized training in addiction. Let's say one of the parents has struggled with substance use. So he is supporting them and maintaining a healthy journey with that, and then the other therapist might be working with the children. So that's what we do, is to make sure that we are making like mental health care accessible. And because we all have this specialized training in dealing with divorce, and yes, a lot of our cases, there's a high conflict divorce, but sometimes just run of the mill, a marriage is ending and they are working together as a good team.
Yeah.
But we're there to support from sort of all different angles.
Yeah.
And some are court ordered. Sometimes we're cited in a court order as being a resource specifically for a family or what a certain role is. And that court order will dictate what our roles are, what, like who's paying for what, maybe the length of time of the relationship, like where we have decision making, like where we are giving recommendations that the family is kind of called to follow versus an order that's just really general that says, children will receive therapy services through Egan counseling and consulting, and the therapist will coordinate with the parents about, how long those services are and what types of goals they're working on. Yeah. Some orders are pretty general. Yeah. Some are really, really specific, and we go and testify and speak to the court about progress being made or recommendations have been followed or not followed, or we have to create some sort of treatment summary. Obviously, those are more intense.
Yes. Yeah.
And we do it. I mean, it's not something we avoid. It just has to be clinically appropriate, and it has to be done with the right protections towards the clients and our own licensure. So we have like our own attorneys that support our work.
Sure. Yeah. Which I feel like all the details we're going over during this episode in particular are resources that I think the average person doesn't realize is out there.
I agree.
And that the average person doesn't realize the different roles or dynamics that can play when we are addressing the mental health needs, the co-parenting needs of children and families that are going through divorce. And so I guess my first little nugget there is to stress to the listener, this is but one episode of a plethora of material out there that really helps individuals find those resources for their family. And coming back to, I know we kind of talked before we even started airing the episode about social media and going to like a Facebook group for advice. And it's similar to how I get frustrated when I see the legal questions. And I'm sure you get frustrated when you see the therapy questions, because I'm sure you see, these are 3 different types of therapy that we should be addressing here. These are different issues that need to be addressed more so by someone with your specialized training versus someone who has just taken a course in working with families.
I think, you in your role as a attorney, you have a lot of opportunity to share knowledge about these types of services that exist for people specifically going through some sort of legal stress or divorce or something, because oftentimes I think attorneys are the first point of contact. There'll be somebody who's debating separating and you hear, like you should consult a lawyer. I feel like that is something people understand is they're there at minimum should be consultation with a lawyer. And so I think there's opportunity there for family law specialists to make sure parents know what resources are out there. And for, me as a therapist, I'm licensed in North and South Carolina. So of course that's where my clientele is coming from. I do go on TikTok just under Dr. Terry Egan. I think it's Dr. Terry Egan therapist or something like that. And I, try to give snippets of information, and some of the things I talk about are just what are services? What is a reunification therapist? What is a parent coordinator? What is a co-parenting therapist? Because sometimes people don't even know what to Google to find, or they'll Google family therapist, which is a great resource. But if they don't have any kind of specialized training in divorce, maybe that person isn't going to be as effective as somebody who has the additional training. So it's tricky, but I know from my end, I do a lot of coordinating, getting clients who are debating separation, encouraging them to get legal counsel. I know you and your practice is great about letting your clients know about resources like me. Like I think Charlotte, at least from my view, I feel like we're particularly strong in it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do, as you know, we try to get together, we go to shared conferences. I'm part of several consultation groups, like a PC consultation group, a high conflict divorce consultation group. Like we've had judges even be really generous with their time at conferences and things. Like I do feel like this community works really hard to make sure we're all swimming in the same direction.
Yeah. And to that exact point is we also are aware, some of us hyper aware of what our lane is, and we try to stay in our lane.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, I will be the first one to bring in a certified divorce financial analyst, a therapist, a certified divorce real estate expert, because guess what? I don't sell homes. I just don't. I understand the law behind them.
Sure.
Actually, real property was
when to refer them to someone else.
Exactly. And same thing for other attorneys, right? So if we have a business and it's being dealt with in the divorce, but after the divorce, it needs new formation documents, I send them to a business attorney because they're just going to be better at it than I am, simply put.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I hope what we're doing here in Charlotte does have ripple effects, because I think as people learn more about resources, then they're more likely to tap into them and get them sooner. That's part of the reason why we produce this podcast. That's part of the reason our law firm puts a number of resources on our website and social media pages, is because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And then once you know it, you can do better.
Well, you don't want to have to operate from a place of crisis.
Yes.
That is so stressful. It's stressful, but it's also more expensive, and being reactive is a harder place to come from than being proactive. So the families that seek out support earlier in the process, get legal advice, I think they fare better. Their stress levels lower. They feel more empowered. They're just not operating from a place of fear.
Yeah. I personally love the case that the parties actually haven't separated yet, and one of them is coming to talk to me. Like, great. I don't have to go to court next week. That's even better. Let me get acclimated to your situation and let's strategize. And what I find, at least on our end, is if we can get into a case relatively early, even before the date of separation, we can create a smoother transition with all the legal paperwork that needs to be put in place. But it's just a lot smoother of a transition into the separated state, especially when there's children involved, especially if we have to sell a home, especially if there are a lot of other moving pieces as well. Even in a way personally, because, it's one thing to say the house has to be sold because neither party can afford it. It's another thing to put the for sale sign in the front yard.
And tell the kids. Or if they have to move schools because you're selling the house.
Which they're moving their friend group then too.
Yeah, it's complicated. And if parents can go into a separation, like you said, early in the game, they make some decisions when everybody's still feeling calm. I think there can be a lot of really kid-focused decisions made at that point. Whereas if there's like something, one party feels really blindsided, or there's some sort of really unexpected happening or crisis, and then it just feels like everybody's world was upended all at once. And sometimes that happens. It just does, and doesn't make anybody bad person or anything like that. But sometimes that's the reality we're operating from. But if as therapists, we can come in and like, okay, let's take a breath and, take our time here to think this through. Yeah. And also protect the kids from adult information. That is, so helpful. Yes. But man, if you let the cat out of the bag and so-and-so had an affair and so-and-so emptied the bank account and grandma says this, I mean, you can't roll that back.
You can't roll it back. And I like to describe it as the cliff. The separation is actually not the cliff. The decision to separate is not the cliff. The cliff is when all sanity goes out the window and everyone's in free fall and everyone's grasping for whether that be some type of help, some type of money, some type of relief that they just need in that moment. We're not in a good state. We are in the mudslinging, everyone's yelling at each other, filing motions against each other, and nothing makes sense. But if we can get parties before they even approach that cliff, and to your point, don't start talking about, the other spouse's affair in front of the kid.
Or put it on social media.
Goodness. Yes. Agreed. Yeah, it happens. It's like if we can keep us from getting to that cliff, and some of that may be, hey, let me check your emails before you send that to the opposing party, for example, or let's get the child into therapy before they have further deterioration of their mental health. Then it's just better all the way around. And judges will also like you better too.
That matters. I mean, you don't want to do something that later on you're trying to clean up after.
Yeah. Well, Tara, it's been fabulous having you here in the Legal Lounge. If the listener wanted to learn more about your practice, your team, your TikTok channel, where can they find you?
So my website, or the website of my practice is, the whole practice name is Egan Counseling and Consulting, but the easy website is just egancounseling.com. You can go there. You can click on anybody on our team. We do have a lot of resources that people can access through our website or, via links on our website. TikTok is just Dr. Tara Egan, I think therapist, and it's pretty easy to find. And, I think it's a helpful, like little snippets of information to consider. Yeah. So I think that's a quick resource too. I know I like to look at little nuggets of information and then use that to start a search that goes deeper. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Until next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.